Good morning and welcome back to Between the Ropes TV. This morning we're going to be looking at last night, or this morning if you're in the UK's fight between Keith Thurman and Mario Barrios. Before we do that, we're really close to 500 subscribers, so please hit that button and hit the like button. It really does help us out, guys, and it costs you absolutely nothing. So let's get into it. Thurman was returning after 2.5 years out. Obviously, as we know, we mentioned it in our preview, he lost last time out to Manny Pacquiao. He's then had, I think the stat was 931 days since a surgery. So we know he's had his rough rub of the green with injuries, but he was back. But at 33, it was always going to be a question of what does he have left? Mario Barrios, a game opponent, taller, rangier, stepping up from 140. But for me, it really did come down to what does Thurman have left? Because as we know, his resume was impressive and he's been in with some big names. Former unified world champion. He's a quality operator on his day. Unfortunately, guys, that is what we got to see last night. He came out, he looked really sharp and he sort of imposed himself on Barrios throughout the early rounds. And to be fair, at times he did look for that finish, which is key. He couldn't quite get the finish. It did go to the scorecards. It was a unanimous decision with scores of 117, 111 on one card, 118, 110 on the other two. Now, for Thurman, he's 33. He's back at welterweight, and I think he looked good. I think my only slight, not criticism, but observation, if you like, is the fact that I think he faded towards the later rounds, if I'm being brutally honest. I think that the engine might need some tweaks, whether that's age, whether that's the inactivity. It's probably a mix of all of them in reality. So what's next for Keith Thurman? For me, it should be one more fight before a world title shot. You've got Ugas and Spence, they're tied up. So, there's the WBC, IBF, WBA titles. To jump in with Crawford, who's probably current, he's a pound-for-pound superstar. I think that would be a bit wild at this point. I think he'd be far better off trying to get a fight with the likes of, I talked about Conor Benn. I'd love to see that fight. Be a good step up for Conor Benn, but it would also be a very good fight for Keith Thurman to take. And definitely then you would have to say the winner would be in line for a world title shot. But if he was to jump in with the likes of a Boots Ennis, a Virgil Ortiz, I'd worry, because as we saw last night, I think Barrios didn't have the power to come back when Thurman faded. So in those rounds where Thurman's dominating, it's okay, but it should also be confident on these guys, these bigger names in the welterweight division. He probably won't have it all his own way like he did at times last night. And then they can impose themselves back on him. So he's got to be, let's not get carried away is probably the message that I'm trying to say, because I'm a big Keith Thurman fan. We predicted he'd win, so I'll be giving Ray some stick about that because he was backing Barrios. But let's not get carried away. I think we need to keep the brakes on a little bit. And I think activity is going to be key for him. If I was him, I'd want to get back out in sort of May, June time and then look to that world title shot for probably the end of the year. Mario Barrios, let's look at him quickly. He's still a young fighter. He did jump up to make this 147, but he's bigger. He's a bigger guy, and he weighed in heavy than Keith Thurman. He didn't look like he had the power last night, if I'm being brutally honest. So perhaps 140 is where he should be. But after back-to-back defeats to obviously Keith Thurman and previously Gervonta Davis, he needs to go back to the drawing board, rebuild, doesn't he? He needs to get some wins before he jumps back in at this world level. He's quite fortunate in the fact, obviously, with the PBC, they like to have in-house fights. So I'm sure he'll get big fights still. And there's no shame in losing to either guy he's lost to. But he definitely needs to go away, get a couple of wins before jumping back in. And he's young enough to come again. Let's not forget that, guys. So, we'll wrap it up there. Absolutely buzzing for Keith Thurman. I'm more buzzing because I've got one over on Ray. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. And, join us on the next one, guys. We've got a big announcement for the channel tomorrow. And then a busy week of content.